Three reasons why God isolate the chosen ones. Isolation means different things to different people in different situations. However, according to the Bible, God isolate people to set them apart. I know that many people have their own understanding towards the mystery of the law of isolation. Let me quickly get the elephant out of the room by saying this to you. Isolation is not loneliness. Loneliness is not isolation. These are two different things. You can be surrounded by people. You can have people around you and still feel lonely. Therefore, loneliness is not isolation. Just because you're lonely doesn't mean God is isolating you or you're being isolated by God. Some of you are lonely for reasons that God is not part of. It will quickly gonna break down to you the reasons why God isolates people. But since I brought this, isolation is not loneliness. Let's talk about isolation according to the Bible, what it is. When you read the book of Genesis chapter 12 verses 1 to 3, God calls Father Abraham and he says, I want you to come up of your father's country. I want you to get out of your father's nation. He then attaches a reason why he's calling Abraham out in verses 2. He says, I want to bless you. I want to make out of you a great nation. Then he goes further and say, I want to make your name great. I want you to pay attention to the things that God says in verse 2. It then tells you that isolation is the mother of greatness. Great names are constructed in isolation. So isolation is not punishment, where you get people feeling like God is punishing them by isolating them. If you are chosen or one who are called by God, I want you to pay attention to what I'm going to say, because this will unlock in which has God put in you and will bring peace even in the midst of confusion in your life. So the first reason why God isolate people is to prepare people, because the word isolation means to be set apart, to be separated. So God separate people to prepare them. One thing about God that does not hate us, you cannot be used by God accidentally. You cannot be used by God and God doesn't know he's using you. Hence, anybody that God will want to use will have to be prepared. God cannot assign and put somebody on assignment who he himself had not prepared himself. So, when you look at the life of David, David was anointed on age of 15, but he became a king of age of 30. Why? Because the 15 years that he was not a king, God was preparing him. And that was because if you want to represent God one way or the other, God will have to make sure that you are equipped, that you are prepared. So isolation is a season of preparation, because every gift that a person has a date of birth. Let me break that one down. No one gets born today and immediately they know what they are born for. No one got born today and immediately know why they are here. It's an isolation that God gonna reveal his gifts to you. So we call that a stage where the gift is present. And those stages where the gift being birthed, isolation, plays a very important role in you being aware of what you carry. So God have to prepare you. But in order for him to do that, he have to separate you. He have to prepare you. So isolated, not because I'm being rejected by God. I'm isolated because I'm being prepared by God. The second reason why God isolate the chosen one is because God want to capacitate the chosen one. One thing about God is whenever he calls men, he does not immediately commission them. He calls men, he colleges men, he then commissions men. And it is in the colleging that God will capacitate the chosen one. And how does he do it? He will do it by isolating the chosen one. So, it is not a punishment. Capacitated is not the punishment. David was anointed at the age of 15 and became king at the age of 30. What he was doing for these 15 years, he was being capacitated. That's why it was easy for him to look at Goliath and say, who is this? Even with his size, even because the man was capacitated behind the scene. And when he showed up in public, he was ready. He knew who he was and who his God was. And when they asked him how you're gonna do it, he gives testimony that nobody knows about. Looking after my father's sheep, when I went after the bear and scattered the bear and took back the sheep. And another time a lion came, took one of the sheep. I went after the lion and scattered him. So bear and the lion, I have two testimonies. I took out of a bear and I took out a lion, but nobody know about. But he knows it about himself, the capacitated of the chosen one. So who's that Palestine? Who's that? In the book of Genesis chapter 32 and chapter 34, you will realize that when Jacob met with the angel of the Lord, rather wrestled with the angel of the Lord, he was alone. Jacob was not a lonely man. He have wives, he have children, but what he had encountered, he was alone. When he encountered, he was alone. You will never have an encounter as long as you are too much in the public, you will never have certain encounters. God will cause you to have certain encounters while you're isolated. If you want to have divine encounters, master the law and know the law of isolation. One, you understand the mystery of isolation, you will embrace that mystery. You will embrace it. Paul, when he went blind, his name, when he met Jesus, his name was Saul. He became blind for 3 days when he met Jesus and became isolated in the road of Damascus. Jesus blinded him with the Gospels. And that was because you can be isolated by God and come out the same. When God takes you through that season, when you come out a totally different person. Like Paul, after these 3 days and the scales were removed from his eyes, he became a different person. And he found the gospel of Christ, the one of the most beautiful thing. He was mesmerized with it. After what? After being a person who killed Christians. Put it in yourself. And you did not choose yourself. You did not put that chosen one in yourself, and you didn't choose it for yourself. God chose it for you. So, no matter the challenge, when you're called and chosen, don't let anybody underestimate that. I was one of the people that I was sitting, laying in my bed upstairs, not understanding what the heck is going on. However I move, I get swiped and hit with energies and with things I don't know what is that. Imagine, you don't have an idea. And I thought it was the last days of my life. What the fuck is going on? If you speak, people are waiting to say, he's crazy. I knew it. I felt it from inside. And then one day, while the sun was going out, I was sleeping, went to sleep very, like 4, 5 a.m. because I couldn't sleep all night. The moment I slept, I felt something above me. I opened my eyes, I looked, I found an eye with a ring around it. I don't forget that day. And literally told me, get up. Get up. You belong to us. And from that day, I went out of bed, I went downstairs, a different, complete person. What happened? I don't know. Everything that was heavy on me went light. And from that day, I isolated and I started working on myself, looking, studying, reading, looking more into what's happening with me, and looking more into the angelic relay, which then I discovered that where I belong, this is home. That's the celestial relay, there where I came from. That's how I knew I'm an earth angel. I never knew it somebody told me. I never knew what's an earth angel at all. And from that day, I dedicated myself to study universal laws, spiritual laws, doing the work, the healing, the shadow work, facing my fears, trying to activate the DNA the way it said in the Bible, trying to contact my ancestors, praying constantly, fasting constantly, and from that day, everything changed. I became a totally different person. That's what I later knew. It is the salvation. It's when you're born again in Christ consciousness, with your Creator, with the Divine. That's a very lovely experience that I later realized that all what happened with me, it was for that reason. So I can teach others, especially children, how to go through that transformation since young and use their gifts.